Welcome to Stitchery Stories, where textile artists share their life in fabric and thread, inspiration, techniques, disasters and delights. And I'm Susan Reeks, enthusiastic embroiderer and textile art dabbler who also loves podcasting. So take a break and enjoy our light-hearted chat, and please share with your friends so they can enjoy it too. Hello and welcome today to our lovely guest, Katie Tume. Hi Katie.
Hi Sue.
Brilliant to talk to you today, and I've been looking forward to speaking with Katie, and I've been waiting for her to get back from somewhere, which we'll come on to in a minute. So here we have Katie's bio. So Kate Tume is an artist from West Sussex who first learned her craft at her mother's knee. She gained her BA Honours at the Surrey Institute of Art and Design as a fashion and illustration student, but is largely self-taught in hand embroidery techniques. Her work explores themes around species loss and the decline in our natural world, and she often uses religious iconography and mythology in her work to encourage a dialogue about what we hold sacred and how that has changed. Kate's work has featured in publications and exhibitions internationally. She teaches textile art techniques to students from around the world via her workshops, one-to-one tuition and online classes. She also designs and produces a range of textile art boxes, which provide the opportunity to master hand embellishment and embroidery techniques in a sustainable, zero-waste kit. There we are. Right, that's a nice bio there. And while we're on about it, I'll do Katie's links. So she's got her, and of course these are all on Katie's episode of Stitchery Stories, so you can find them all on stitcherystories.com under Katie Tume. But she's also got her website now, and this is going to be a question, you realise, madebymothereagle.com, right? Yep. Then she's got a shop, which is on Big Cartel, that's under Mother Eagle as well. Instagram, Mother Eagle Arts. She has a Skillshare class as well, a free one for you all. Facebook, she's at Made by Mother Eagle. And then you can email her at mothereagle@hotmail.com as well. Right, okie dokie. So, Katie, welcome to Stitchery Stories.
Thank you.
And before we get too far with your Stitchery story today, would you like to share with us what you're working on and what has got you excited?
Yeah, sure. So I am currently working on a portrait of a bat, which I've been working on for a few weeks. Yes, the big red bat. Well, white bat on red, yes. But I'm really excited, to be honest, because I've been back from my first ever artist residency in Costa Rica. I've been back from that for a week, and that allowed me the opportunity to plan all my work for the year. So I've now got kind of 5 more really kind of well-developed concepts and designs that I've sort of already planned. So that's unusual for me. So I'm really excited about that.
Wow. Now, so where do I start? I've got that many questions. Right. Okay. Costa Rica. So, an artist residency. What's that all about? Because I hear people talk about it, but I'll be honest, I haven't a clue. I haven't the faintest clue what an artist residency is. Yeah,
sure. I mean, I that's good to hear, because I've actually filmed quite a few videos on my Instagram, on my IGTV, answering that question, because when I was researching artist residency opportunities, I would have really appreciated a sort of first person approach to that. And I couldn't really find any. But basically, artist residencies really vary hugely. But the thing they have in common, it's a place that you go to where you don't live, and you stay there and you make art. And that's, in a nutshell, what an artist residency is. But the details of that can vary hugely.
Yes.
The one that I went on was a self-directed residency, which basically meant I could have slept for 2 weeks if I wanted to, because nobody's there sort of holding you to account. It's really a space that's provided for you, a studio space, living space, in an environment that is different to where you live that you can then interact with other artists, that you can interact with the environment that you're in, with the experience that you're having, and that then informs the art that you make either there or, you know, in general.
Right.
Yeah.
So were the other artists there as well, or were you there on your own?
No, there were other artists there. So the place I went to was the Mauser Foundation, which they're on Instagram, and their website is mauserfoundation.org. Right. They're a non-profit sustainability non-profit, and they have this big house in a very rural area of Costa Rica near the Pacific coast. And I was there in the house with two other artists during my time, Gillian McCulloch, who's an oil painter, and Talia Peckle, who does murals and collages. So totally different disciplines to my textile discipline.
Yeah.
But we were all there sharing the space, sharing the house, living together for 2 weeks. Yeah, just responding to the environment, responding to where we were and creating what we felt drawn to create.
Yeah. Wow. How exciting though. And how
lovely was amazing
to be able to have some other people there, just saying different disciplines, but sharing the experience with them as fellow artists. I should imagine that was really creative. That sounds lame, but yeah, sparked off a lot of ideas.
It was, and it was absolutely, a massive part of why it was so beautiful and enriching an experience for me, because I would never have been able to, I would have never have met them, those individuals in my normal life, obviously, to start with. But it's a very special experience to be able to share. And, you know, we would have our happy hour at 4:00 and get our beers and look at each other's work and discuss what we'd been doing all day and talk about things we were struggling with. And just, it's a very immersive experience to have as an artist. And I have a part-time job, as many of us do. So the opportunity to just completely just be an artist, I don't have to cook for myself, I don't have to do the laundry, I can just be an artist, and that is a huge privilege. So yeah, it was an amazing experience.
Fabulous. Now, so was that the first time you'd been to Costa Rica?
It was, yeah.
Right, brilliant. And so what did you think about Costa Rica?
I fell in love with that country. For someone who lives in England, I know you have an international listenership, but for someone who lives in England, you know, the kind of wildlife that really is in Costa Rica is the kind that, you know, is in your bedroom with you and is everywhere around you, and you hear it constantly, and it's everything, you know, it's a really visceral environment. And for me, you know, obviously given my subject matter, I was just in heaven every day. I was sort of skipping around with my binoculars because I'd seen a toucan or some poisonous frog, or I had an encounter with a fer-de-lance snake, which I then found out was the most deadly snake in Central America. I had no idea as I was crouching closer and closer to get in its face with my camera. So I was delighted the whole time. I was in a permanent state of just delight because everything's, you know, turned up to 11. Everything is bright and loud and hot and colours and light, you know.
I was going to say it's larger than life, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Now, I haven't been to Costa Rica, but I've been to Belize, just further along there. So cut a long story short, actually had a house out there. I was actually going to go and move there from France, and then for many reasons decided no. But the house was... it was about 10 minutes, 15 minutes walk down a track, an unsurfaced road apparently, down to the beach in the little kind of town, but was surrounded, you know, hacked some rainforest away. There was a large river just nearby, so it was surrounded by jungle. And so fabulous. It was brilliant. It was brilliant for birds because there was a clay day, which was like an orchard. And so you were talking about toucans. One used to come and sit on the windowsill. Now, of course, all the windows are bad, and you've got your mosquito netting. So you're like, oh God, I can't take a decent picture of these toucans because of like the bars and the mosquito
the insect protection.
Yeah, it's so irritating. So lots and people used to come on people used to go on bird watching holidays, and the garden was like a good stopping off point. You'd often see folks kind of parked at the end of the drive, binoculars out, waiting to see what was in the garden. So it's fabulous. Then you'd walk down the creek, and there was caiman, you know, the crocodiles, and
yeah.
Everything. So it was fascinating, but I have to say, I'm really aren't into creepy crawlies and stuff. So
you have to be okay with creepy crawlies.
Yeah, I know. So
part of the world. Yeah,
we finished up with a scorpion in the settee. That was a bit scary.
Oh yeah, our scorpion experience was eating a dead gecko. So I understand where you're coming from. Yeah,
just like whoa. When you stop and think about what you're doing, it's like, oh, God's sake.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah, so I just had this perpetual feeling of just like, thank you. Just I felt so, privileged to see all these things,
Yeah, and so are any of the wildlife that you saw featured in you said you've planned out your work for the year? Is that a theme?
Very much so.
Experience.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I'd decided to do. I kind of, the only thing that I really was committed to doing whilst I was on the residency, given that it was my first time traveling solo for probably almost 20 years, which was quite scary in itself for, a woman by herself. I used to do it in my 20s, but things have changed. Things have changed. So the only thing that I was really committed to doing was just being very intentional with the time that I spent, meaning I just wanted to not get distracted or waste it. Or so I didn't plan on making my work this year centered on Costa Rican wildlife, but they are going to show up. So one of the things that I was absolutely entranced by was iguanas. Iguanas are on the roof, iguanas are in the drains, iguanas are in the guttering
everywhere,
and you can hear them tapping along with the guttering every day because they're sunbathing on the roof or they're in the trees, and I just absolutely loved that. I was just in love with them. So there will definitely be iguana.
So we used to see them on the creek and on the river as well, just kind of posing on the dead tree stumps sticking out of the water and stuff. And they were massive as well, some massive ones. Lovely,
yeah. So there'll be a piece about that. And there's also one of the days that we were there, we went to this national park called Manuel Antonio, and one part of the park is a mangrove swamp, and I saw loads of these amazing crabs called Halloween crabs, which I encourage you to Google because they are absolutely beautiful orange and purple crabs. Look like a little jack-o'-lantern, so that's why they're called Halloween crabs.
Crabs,
but both of them have very interesting conservation stories, so that's the kind of obviously main narrative of my work. So had they not had that, I wouldn't have just I wouldn't have just chosen them as subjects. But they do also happen to have interesting stories attached. So
now let's just move on to that as well, because as you said in your bio there, you use religious iconography, mythology kind of ideas, and very much talking about species loss and so forth. And so everybody go and follow Katie, and she shared some good representative images. I always particularly like, there's two startling styles really I think you've been doing recently. The ones with the shape of the animal is white, it's missing out of its beautifully created environment, and then the ones like icons with the halo and all the rest of it. So they're very interesting, the way in which you are highlighting the plight of our natural world as opposed to it being a representation of just, as it were, the animal. So I particularly like that interpretation as well, because it's quite eye-catching to be able to put all that bling on a picture of a vulture, for example, or a crocodile or whatever it is. So how has that kind of developed?
That has definitely developed probably in the last 7 years now. And it's kind of always been there in my work really ever since I decided to work at the scale that I do, in large scale. I love animals, and art has the ability to engage people on an emotional level that very few other things do. And the religious or the halo motif really is about me wanting to engage the viewer in a dialogue about, what is special, what is precious, what is sacred, and what is holy. And for me, that is nature. And it's just, again, coming back to Costa Rica, it was another real big, strong reason for me wanting to go somewhere like that, because we all, probably most people, well, everybody listening to this is listening to it either on their phone or through their computer, which would suggest they may well be living in a more urban environment. You know, we all have lost, to some extent, the closeness to our natural environment. Yes. Yeah. And yet without it, we cannot survive, and we will not survive in the same way, you know, as our ancestors did. And so the motif of sacredness that I put into my work is really just trying to keep that conversation going and to ask those questions of the viewer, whilst also telling the stories of those particular animals, because all of the animals that I feature have some very interesting, often devastating stories to tell.
Yeah, and that's one thing. There was a couple of things when I'd looked into the animals that you'd done, and then you often share the story as well. And then I think I've even gone and looked up some of these other ones as well.
Oh, good. That makes me delighted.
And some of it I thought, I knew about some of those things, and others I thought, God, I didn't know anything at all about that. And off I've gone and looked. And just before we were chatting, you were talking about you'd been messaging with Janine, and she'd been talking about the pangolin and how trafficked and endangered it was. And I have to say, I mean, I don't really watch the news very much, but all this coronavirus thing. Yeah. And I did see something where they thought it had come from wild animals being all kept in horrible conditions in wild markets and things, including pangolins. And I have to say, I did think to myself, well, do you know what? We are reaping what we are sowing here. If we hadn't, if we hadn't have been treating those wild animals in such an appalling way, then this virus wouldn't have come into our being. And now look where it is. It's all over the world. And I thought, we're killing ourselves off. It's just ridiculous, really.
Yeah.
And that did it to me.
Absolutely. And that's, I'm really glad that it has.
Self-inflicted.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, actually, because the whole coronavirus and wildlife trafficking is something that came up for me, actually, in Costa Rica with the Halloween crab. Yeah. Because the Halloween crab, I had not realized that it was something that I would necessarily come across when I went to this national park. And it was an animal that I'd seen in the past and thought, gosh, that's amazing. I didn't know anything about it. And then I saw it and I was so moved by seeing this creature, because it is so beautiful and so just incredible. And then I Googled it, and every result on Google, front page of Google, was look at my cute pet. It was all of them about how to care for your Halloween crab. And I just thought, and there's few things that make me angry, but exotic pet trade and wildlife trafficking is one of them. But what was really interesting is that it sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole, and I read a National Geographic article which was talking about illegal wildlife trafficking and how it goes hand in hand with exotic pets, because
obviously they've got to get from somewhere, haven't they?
They have to come from somewhere, and this you might have a pet, but there's probably a dozen others that died on the way, or that the environment that was destroyed for you to get them, and the food chain that was disrupted because you've removed this one, or so all of those things. But the really heartbreaking but powerful thing that the National Geographic article concluded with, which was that the big charities that work towards eliminating illegal wildlife trade have discovered that the thing that's most likely to get people to stop is to highlight the threat to humans, not to highlight the destruction of the environment.
Yeah.
And then coronavirus broke out, and then the story emerges that it was from this market in Wuhan that had illegally trafficked animals. And it seems ridiculous to me that it has to come down to a threat to human beings, but it shouldn't surprise me. I'm going to make a piece about this Halloween crab as a way of telling the story of you might think this is a cute thing that you can consume and that you can have, like an iPod or a CD, but it's not an object. It's a real thing, and it has real implications, and it could even kill you. It's a domino effect. So it was a very interesting, timely kind of conversation that happened in the last couple of weeks.
Right, fabulous. Now, this is all sparked off by your brilliant embroidery. So I think
I know.
we need to get back to embroidery, don't we?
Light-hearted conversation. Yeah. It does tend to get a bit dark and deep with me, I'm afraid. Sorry, listeners.
No. It's all absolutely fascinating. And this is what I really love, is that everybody's art sparks off different things. Yeah. And, this is just so strong. So everyone loves the stories behind them. That's why it's called Stitchery Stories. So anyway, right. Okay. So that'll be fabulous following on to see what comes out of your Costa Rica experience. So there we are. Now, you mentioned there about going through a art and design route and having learnt embroidery from your mum, but that you're largely self-taught. So what kind of sparked that off?
So I grew up always loving art, and my parents were, I was very fortunate, and my parents were very encouraging, and I had access to lots of art materials, and I was always kind of making things. And but the thing that happened in my house that was creative was that my mum did embroidery, and it was pretty much all counted cross-stitch kits. But that was what was on the walls of my bedroom in our house, with the kind of cross-stitch projects that she'd done. So I, can remember designing my little cross-stitch things and making them from books that she had by Joe Verso. I never envisaged that as the end point of my creativity. And in fact, going through school, to be honest, sort of hammered out a lot of my creative
desire.
Because I really, really wanted to do art. I really wanted to have a creative career. But because, school at those times, and still now, kind of arbitrarily grades you as you're good or you're bad or you're this or you're that. It didn't in any way sort of nurture anything that was already there in me.
Oh, such a shame. And other people have said exactly the same thing too, Kate.
So many people have this story, and I think it's a real tragedy. So creativity kind of left me. By the time I left A-levels and went to university, I really hadn't got a clue what I wanted to do. I was sort of still clinging to this idea that I wanted to be a fashion designer. But I hadn't had any encouragement in that area. I hadn't designed any clothes, so that wasn't going to happen. I hadn't got any sort of portfolio or anything like that. Right. And I kind of ended up going down a totally different route, and creativity has completely left me. Embroidery had completely left me. And then it was probably around 2007. I was in I'd been in a corporate retail career. I'd done well, I'd been successful, and I was utterly miserable and just was like, I just have to do something creative. And, in all that intervening years, I'd really very much decided that I'm not creative at all. I have no creative ability whatsoever. I'm not a creative person at all. So I'd already put lots of barriers in my way, in my own way, a lot. But I started doing it, and the first thing that I did was I got a big copy of Grey's Anatomy, and I had some graph tracing paper, and I charted out a skull profile, and I did it in counted cross stitch because that was what happened in my house. So that's what I did, and I wanted to do skulls, and so I did this, and I loved it. I loved the whole process. Then I did another one, and then I did another one, and it sort of went from there. But it was still a long, that was 2008, let's say. And then it was still like another 5 years until I finally said to myself, oh, no, I am an artist. It was a long time for me to not feel that was completely a lie and very inauthentic, for me to really feel like I could justify job title. Took a long time. So I was in my kind of in my early 30s before that really felt like
you decided you could call yourself an artist.
I deserved it. I could justify it.
As the person who's been on an artist in residence thing for the last 2
years. Exactly. And now I
all the fabulous things you create.
So now that seems ridiculous, but I feel like it's something that people seem to always really resonate with, because the more I am an artist, the more I have conversations as an artist, the more I meet people, adults, women especially, who have never felt like that was legitimate. And, and even now today, like 4% of art in galleries is by women. The most expensive piece of art by a woman ever sold by Georgia O'Keeffe, compared to a man, was like 5% of the value.
Really? Wow. Yeah, I knew it was bad. I didn't realise it was that bad.
So yeah, the gender pay gap.
Don't set us off on this one. Goodness sake.
Sorry. Trying to steer it away but yeah, anyway, for me personally, it was a long road to being to fully realising that my true identity is artist, always has been artist, and it was just that the practice had left me for many years.
Fabulous. Right, and I've got to ask this one. Where did Mother Eagle come from then?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Nobody ever asks this question, but it's from a Jane's Addiction song. It's from the rock group Jane's Addiction.
Yeah.
It's a song called "The Wrong Girl," and there's a line in this song which says she's like a mother eagle coming down. And when I decided I'm going to take this leap into creativity, I initially was not really connected to art or embroidery, but I wanted to set up an Etsy shop and I needed a name for it, and and nothing really kind of resonated with me until I was listening to my music on the bus, and this song came on, and I was like, that's it, it's Mother Eagle. And to be honest, it was, the song is about this like powerful woman, of which I did not feel I was at the time. So I felt like this is a good totemic name for my business. But yeah, people are always surprised. It's not about it's an animal. It's nothing to do with eagles. It's none of that. It's rock and roll.
Yeah, no, and I love the fact that you've just said there it's about a powerful woman, and because that's where you are. You're standing in that space now. So
yes,
fabulous. I love that story. Brilliant.
Great.
Right. So wow, that's all fascinating. Do you know, I've got that many questions, Katie. I don't know how we're going to manage. Anyway, I just want to bring in, we often talk about favourite techniques, don't we? And I have to say, looking at some of the pieces that you've done, you've incorporated the most unusual things into creating a beautiful picture of an endangered creature at crisis. And one of the things that really I remember was is he a monkey? He's got like shaggy golden, the
golden snubnosed monkey. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, he's got this shaggy golden coat. And while you were showing pictures of whip in progress, and it looked like upholstery fringing or something.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And I thought, wow. And then you gave him a haircut, and then it all worked, and it was fabulous.
Yeah.
So yeah, where do you get your inspiration for doing stuff like that from?
So he was a bit of a breakthrough piece, really, because I feel like I'm always sort of pushing back the frontiers of what I think is possible or even allowed, like less and less the sort of rules of what you're meant to do.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, become less meaningful. But yeah, it's been a while to push that away. But I wanted to do this golden snub-nosed monkey, and I wanted to do the full piece, the full body, and they do have these amazing long fringed golden coats, and there's just simply was just no other way for me to do that unless I had fringe made. So I just went on eBay and bought loads of gold upholstery fringing and just experimented with putting it down. It was incredibly easy once deciding but I think that's kind of approach that I do with every piece is I pick and choose. So if I need to use gold work because that's what's going to represent what I want to represent, then that's what I'll choose. I'm not precious about mixing those techniques
and
up.
I think that's what makes them so powerful. So as I said, back to the vulture, and the other thing that I like in terms of your technique is then, the vulture's got like a black cloak on, or some of these things have got a lacy collar, and there's other things come in as part of the story about it and the character that you've built around that creature. So yeah, I love that. And I suppose the size of things, you'd be making fringe for the rest of your life, wouldn't you? Trying to stitch that, you'd have gone mad, really.
I mean, it did feel like that.
A brilliant idea doing that. An excellent shot.
It did feel like that. Yeah, you're doing the turkey work though, all on the face, because I did have to do all that hand knotting around the face, and that I did think, that's only a small amount. That won't take that long. But by the end of it, my God, I was like, I'm never ever going to do turkey rug work ever again.
Brilliant. Yes, I really, really love that, and the way that you look for shiny beads on things as well. And the flamingo, he's got beads on him, hasn't he, and stuff. So,
yeah. I am very inspired by the materials, and sometimes it is just about, I just love this particular sequin, I want to use it.
So you're led by the materials and how you can use them.
Yeah, quite often, yeah.
Brilliant. I really like that. And right, so I know we've talked about, obviously, the Costa Rica experience, which clearly was a highlight of your career so far. So have you got anything else that you want to highlight as being a high point in your journey so far? By the sound of it, you've had many, and you've had lots of personal realizations.
Certainly personally there's been a lot, but I'd say professionally, I'd say my first kind of major exhibition, which was in 2017, was extremely, both personally and professionally, a high point.
Yes.
Which was at a gallery in Brighton called Unka, and they showed sort of 2 years worth of my work in one exhibition, and they're a gallery who are kind of dedicated to bringing the message of conservation through the arts to the public. So it was a real perfect, and that's why I think I hold it in such high esteem as a highlight, because I hope to do more, have more and more. That is the space that I want my work to inhabit.
Yes.
But for me as well, it was also the first time that I'd had my work displayed in such a way, and my name in vinyl on the wall. It was a real kind of arrival point for me to feel like, okay, this is my job, this is what I do now, and other people have legitimized it. And it was a lot of those things kind of came to that point and crystallized in that exhibition. So I really, that memory of that is very important.
Yes, I can see that from what you've said before, when we're talking about feeling like an imposter and all of those issues, to then have your own exhibition in such a perfectly aligned place that, I should imagine you were absolutely over the moon at that one.
It was, very special, yeah.
And now, did you... Yes, you were involved with the Jane Goodall exhibition as well that Janine Heschel was organising, weren't you? Yes, I knew I'd spotted that somewhere. So another highlight there as well, I should imagine.
Oh God, I mean, there's every year I try and push my work out there and have some things, you do apply. I know Janine talked about this as well. You apply for a lot of things. You get a lot of rejections. I feel like that is very much part of the job of being an artist, is collecting rejection so that you develop that thick skin. But as soon as she put that call out there, I knew that again, that's a perfect space for my work to be in. So knowing that Jane Goodall had seen my work and was obviously extremely privileged, very special.
But what a sad thing to say, and I don't mean that in a rude way, of like, it's an artist's job to collect refusals. It's like, no.
I know it honestly is part of the job. You cannot do it. And I mean, I only applied for, like I said, I'm not full-time, I do have a job 3 days a week. Needing to spend time to apply for things, to get your work out there, to get it seen by people, to fulfill the destiny of my work, which is not just to inhabit a space on a screen on a phone, is for people to actually have an experience with the work, is what I want, and to feel something and to be inspired or be moved to make changes in our declining natural world. You have to apply for stuff, and a lot more than not, for me, in my stage of my career, you do get rejections, and it has made me feel incredibly rejected. That's awful. What rejection feels awful. And of course you then think, I'm not good enough, I'm not,
and off we go again in that
and off we go again. So I feel that, but if you don't apply, then you definitely
you've already fulfilling. You've got a no already, haven't you?
You've rejected yourself, so you have to do it, and you sort of have to make your own peace with it. So I would say to anybody who wants to put their work out there, like, you might well get rejected, and that's okay. Like, so I really spent like last year thinking, I want to collect rejection this year, because I want to have a relationship with it that doesn't feel like the end of the world. I want to have a relationship with, if you're doing something enough, then it just loses some of its kind of impact, doesn't it?
It does. It loses its edge, doesn't it? And then it's to move forward with.
if you decide to go for a run and you've never done it, then it's going to feel like a massive impact. But if you run every day, then it's not going to feel like such a big deal to do it. So that's the same thing. You sort of have to work that muscle of putting stuff out there. And now I think when I apply for things so often that you kind of forget what you've applied for. So somebody saying, oh, sorry, you've not been selected, you're like, okay, fine, and you move on. It's a much more healthier headspace to be in than imagining that this one exhibition that you've applied for is going to say yes to you and then they don't. It really has an impact on you.
Yeah, it surely does. So, right, well, I'm actually really glad I mentioned that, because I'm sure lots of people would find that really inspiring and real, that this is what life is, let's not sugarcoat it. So, but thank you so much for, being brave and saying that as well.
You're welcome.
It really is. Right, as we're hurtling towards our time, a quickie. So given all of the kind of work and ideas that you have, do you have any of those dreaded UFOs lurking, Katie?
I have one. It's probably over 10 years old now, because I don't like to work on more than one piece at a time, and I like to finish things. But but it is one of those counted cross-stitch skulls that I did. It's the one that I did that set all of this off. I then thought, I'm going to do another one, and I finished the skull part of it. But for some reason, I decided to do it on white Ada and then do the background in black. So it's just 100,000 black X's that I have not done to finish the background of this piece. I would love to finish it, because
you can paint it or something instead.
There's no time that I have that I feel that I could justify by just cross-stitching black X's.
Do you know, when I was asking you that, in my head I nearly said, I bet it's something to do with cross-stitch, and I thought, that'll sound awful.
No, it is. I think I'd really like it. I'd really like to frame it and put it on the wall, but I don't know if I'll ever decide that I can be bothered to do it.
It just needs something else than black X's. Paint it, dye it. I'm sure there's something you can do to it.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'll have to, yeah.
Fabulous. Right, Katie, do you know, this is just absolutely fantastic. So you've got your plan now of the year. So is there anything else that we can look forward to joining you in anything for the rest of 2020?
Well, I hope so. So I've entered quite a few pieces into the David Shepherd Wildlife Artist of the Year Award, which the exhibition is in May. So if I get selected for that, I will let people know on Instagram. So that's coming up. And I have also entered a piece, second year running, into the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition, which is a bit of I kind of did decide I was not going to bother, because they don't have a textiles category, obviously,
it's
like most of these establishment things don't do. But embroidery has been featured in a summer exhibition before, and I've put the vulture in for that one, so that would be good. But otherwise, just I'll be working on the bat, and then I think I'm going to do a big piece about salmon next.
Salmon?
Yeah.
That was my maiden name. I am Susan Salmon.
Oh, are you? Well, there you go.
Yes. So I'll be keeping an eye out on that one. Fabulous. Right, Katie, do you know, that's brilliant. Everybody just go and follow her. Go and find her on Instagram, mother_eagle_arts. Find her on Facebook, Made by Mother Eagle. Go and look on her website. Go and buy her stuff. Go and sign up for textile art boxes and all the rest of it, because you know what? We all need to help and support each other. And that's the only way things happen. So there we are. It's been fabulous chatting with you. Clearly, I could have spent all day, and I say this with every guest, don't I? I really have to cut the line at some point. But
sorry for going off on my rants.
No, I go off on rants as well. So and you know, that's what people like. It's down to us and our opinions and our ideas and inspiration and our stories, and that's why people love listening to Stitchery Stories. So there we are. Right, Katie, that's been absolutely fabulous speaking to you. I know everyone will go and look at your stuff, and thank you so much for sharing your Stitchery story with us today.
Thank you, Sue. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, then please join the Stitchery Stories fan club so you can get an email when a new episode is released. It's a quick and easy way of listening and of keeping up with any news and information around this podcast. Please visit stitcherystories.com. Of course, you can listen to Stitchery Stories on plenty of podcast apps at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and plenty more besides. You can also ask your smart speaker to play Stitchery Stories podcast too. But wherever you listen, why not leave us a rating and a review to encourage other people to listen too? I very much appreciate you taking the time to do that for me. So that is the end of our Stitchery story for today. Keep stitching, keep smiling, and keep creating your very own Stitchery stories.